Namaste, Dandavat Pranam. By the instruction and grace of our spiritual master, Om Vishnupad, Paramahamsa, Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj, we are here reading Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, The Creation of the Fourth Order, Chapter 3, Text 19. Tarbhirnavyatatishilimukai Site Raditanga Hridayina Duyata Svanam Yata Vakra Diyam Duruktibir Divanisham Tapyati Marmatadita. Lord Śiva continued, if one is hurt by the arrows of an enemy, one is not aggrieved as when cut out. If one is hurt by the arrows of an enemy, one is not as aggrieved as when cut by the unkind words of a relative, for such grief continues to rend one's heart day and night. Purport. Satī might have concluded that she would take the risk of going to her father's house, and even if her father spoke unkindly against her, she would be tolerant, as a son sometimes tolerates the reproaches of his parents. But Lord Śiva reminded her that she would not be able to tolerate such unkind words, because natural psychology dictates that although one can suffer harm from an enemy and not mind so much because pain inflicted by an enemy is natural, when one is hurt by the strong words of a relative, one suffers the effects continually day and night, and sometimes the injury becomes so intolerable that one commits suicide. Text 20. Vyaktam tvam utkrishta gate prajapate priyatmajanam asisu brume mata tatapi manam na pitu praptayase madashrayat ka paritapyate yata. My dear white-complexioned wife, it is clear that of the many daughters of Daksha, you are the pet. Yet you will not be honored at this house because of your being my wife. Rather, you will be sorry that you are connected with me. Purport. Lord Śiva put the argument that even if Satī proposed to go alone without her husband, still she would not be received well because she was his wife. There was every chance of a catastrophe even if she wanted to go alone. Therefore, Lord Śiva indirectly requested her not to go to her father's house. Papachamananina Pradhatarendriya Smridhehi Purusha Buddhi Sakshinam Akalpesham Adhirodum Anjasa Param Padam Dvesti Yata Suraharim. One who is conducted by false ego and thus always distressed, both mentally and sensually, cannot tolerate the opulence of self-realized persons. Being unable to rise to the standard of self-realization, he envies such persons as much as demons envy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Purport. The real reason for the enmity between Lord Śiva and Daksha is explained here. Daksha was envious of Lord Śiva because of Shiva's high position as an incarnation of a quality of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and because Śiva was directly in contact with the Supersoul and was therefore honored and given a better sitting place than he. There were many other reasons also. Daksha, being materially puffed up, could not tolerate the high position of Lord Śiva, so his anger at Lord Shiva's not standing up at his presence was only the final manifestation of his envy. Lord Śiva is always in meditation and always perceives the Supersoul. as expressed here by the words Purusha Buddhi Sakshinam. The position of one whose intelligence is always absorbed in meditation upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very great and cannot be imitated by anyone, especially an ordinary person. When Daksha entered the arena of Yajna, Lord Śiva was in meditation and might not have seen Daksha enter. But Daksha took the opportunity to curse him because Daksha had maintained an envious attitude towards Lord Śiva for a long time. Those who are actually self-realized see every individual body as a temple of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead in his Paramatma feature is residing in everyone's body. When one offers respect to the body, it is not to the material body, but to the presence of the Supreme Lord. Thus, one who is always in meditation upon the Supreme Lord is always offering him obeisances. But since Daksha was not very elevated, he thought that obeisances were offered to the material body. And because Lord Śiva did not offer respect to his material body, Daksha became envious. Such persons, being unable to rise to the standard of self-realized souls like Lord Śiva, are always envious. The example given here is very suitable. Asuras, demons, or atheists are always envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They simply want to kill him. Even in this age, we find some so-called scholars commenting on Bhagavad Gita who are envious of Krishna. When Krishna says, Man manha bhava mad bhakta, in 18.65, always think of me, become my devotee, and surrender unto me, the so-called scholars comment that it is not to Krishna that we have to surrender. That is envy. The asuras, or atheists, the demons, without reason or cause, are envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, instead of offering respect to the self-realized persons, foolish men who cannot approach the highest standard of self-realization are always envious, although there is no reason. Text 22. Pratyudgamha prasrayanabhivadhanam vidhiyate sadhu mita samudhyame pragyai parasmai purushaya chetasa guhasayayavana dehamanine. My dear young wife, certainly friends and relatives offer mutual greetings by standing up, welcoming one another and offering obeisances. But those who are elevated to the transcendental platform, being intelligent, offer such respects to the supersoul, who is sitting within the body, not to the person who identifies with the body. Purport. It may be argued that since Daksha was the father-in-law of Lord Śiva, it was certainly the duty of Lord Śiva to offer him respect. In answer to that argument, it is explained here that when a learned person stands up or offers obeisances and welcome, he offers respect to the supersoul, who is sitting within everyone's heart. Among Vaishnavas, therefore, it is seen that even when a disciple offers obeisances to his spiritual master, the spiritual master immediately returns the obeisances because they are mutually offered not to the body, but to the supersoul. Therefore, the spiritual master also offers respect to the supersoul, situated in the body of the disciple. The Lord says in Srimad Bhagavatam that offering respect to his devotee is more valuable than offering respect to him. Devotees do not identify with the body, so offering respect to a Vaishnava means offering respect to Vishnu. It is stated also that as a matter of etiquette, as soon as one sees a Vaishnava, one must immediately offer him respect, indicating the supersoul sitting within. A Vaishnava sees the body as a temple of Vishnu. Since Lord Śiva had already offered respects to the supersoul in Krishna consciousness, offering respect to Daksha, who identified with his body, was already performed. There was no need to offer respect to his body, for that is not directed by any Vedic injunction. Text 23. Sattvam vishuddham vasudeva sabditam yadiyate tatra puman apavrata satvecha tasmin bhagavan vasudevo yadhok sajo me namasa vidhiyate. I am always engaged in offering obeisances to Lord Vasudeva in pure Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is always pure consciousness, in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead, known as Vasudeva, is revealed without any covering. The living entity is constitutionally pure. Ashango hyayam purusha. In the Vedic literature, it is said that the soul is always pure and uncontaminated by material attachment. The identification of the body with the soul, is due to misunderstanding. As soon as one is fully Krishna conscious, it is to be understood that one is in his pure original constitutional position. This state of existence is called Shuddha Sattva, which means that it is transcendental to the material qualities. Since this Shuddha Sattva existence is under the direct action of the internal potency, in this state the activities of material consciousness stop. For example, when iron is put into a fire, it becomes warm, and when red hot, although it is iron, it acts like fire. Similarly, when the copper is surcharged with electricity, its action as copper stops. It acts as electricity. So in Bhagavad Gita 14.26, it also confirms that anyone who engages in unadulterated devotional service to the Lord is at once elevated to the position of pure Brahman. Mamshayo vya vicharena bhakti yogena sevate sagunan samityetam brahma bhuyaya kalpate. Therefore, Shuddha Sattva, as described in this verse, is the transcendental position, which is technically called Vasudeva. Vasudeva is also the name of the person from whom Krishna appears. This verse explains that the pure state is called Vasudeva because in that state, Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed without any covering. To execute unadulterated devotional service, therefore, one must follow the rules and regulations of devotional service without desire to gain material profit by fruit of activities or mental speculation. In pure devotional service, one simply serves the Supreme Personality of Godhead as a matter of duty, without reason and without being impeded by material conditions. That is called Shuddha Sattva, or Vasudeva, because in that stage, the Supreme Person, Krishna, is revealed in the heart of the devotee. Srila Jiva Goswami has very nicely described this Vasudeva or Shuddha Sattva in his Bhagavat Sandarbha. He explains that Asotara Sata 108 is added to the name of the spiritual master to indicate one who is situated in Shuddha Sattva, or in the transcendental state of Vasudeva. The word Vasudeva is also used for other purposes. For example, Vasudeva also means one who is everywhere, or all-pervading. The sun is also called Vasudeva Sabditam. The word Vasudeva may be utilized for different purposes, but whatever purpose we adopt, Vasudeva means the all-pervading or localized Supreme Personality of Godhead. In Bhagavad Gita 7.19, it is also stated Vasudeva Sarvamiti. Factual realization is to understand Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and surrender unto him. Vasudeva is the ground wherein Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is revealed. When one is free from the contamination of material nature and is situated in pure Krishna consciousness, or in the Vasudeva state, Vasudeva, the Supreme Person, is revealed. This state is also called Kaivalya, which means pure consciousness. Jnanam Satvikam Kaivalyam. When one is situated in pure transcendental knowledge, one is situated in Kaivalya. Therefore, Vasudeva also means Kaivalya, a word which is generally used by impersonalists. Impersonal Kaivalya is not the last stage of realization. In Krishna consciousness, Kaivalya, when one understands the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then one is successful. In that state, in that pure state, by hearing, chanting, remembering, etc., because of the development of knowledge of the science of Krishna, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. All these activities are under the guidance of the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The action of the internal potency is also described in this verse as apavrita, free from any covering. Because the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his name, his form, his quality, his paraphernalia, etc., being transcendental, are beyond material nature, it is not possible to understand any one of them with the materialistic senses. When the senses are purified by the discharge of pure devotional service, Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhaktir Uchate. The pure senses can see Krishna without covering. Now, one may inquire that since factually the devotee has the same material existential body, how is it possible that the same materialistic eyes become purified by devotional service? The example, as stated by Lord Chaitanya, is that devotional service cleanses the mirror of the mind. In a clean mirror, one can see one's face very distinctly. Similarly, simply by cleansing the mirror of the mind, one can have a clear conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 8.8, Abhyasa Yoga Yuktena. By executing one's prescribed duties in devotional service, Chaitasa Nanyagamina, or simply by hearing about God and chanting about Him, if one's mind is always engaged in chanting and hearing and is not allowed to go elsewhere, one can realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed by Lord Chaitanya, by the Bhakti Yoga process, beginning from hearing and chanting, one can cleanse the heart and mind, and thus one can clearly see the face of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Śiva said that since his heart was always filled with the conception of Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because of the Supreme Lord's presence within his heart and mind, he was always offering obeisances unto that Supreme Godhead. In other words, Lord Śiva is always in trance, samadhi. This samadhi is not under the control of the devotee, it is under the control of Vasudeva, for the entire internal energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead acts under his order. Of course, the material energy also acts by his order, but his direct will is specifically executed through the spiritual energy. Thus, by his spiritual energy, he reveals himself. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.6, Sambhavam Yatmamhayaya. Atmamhayaya means internal potency. By his sweet will, he reveals himself by his internal potency, being satisfied by the transcendental loving service of the devotee. The devotee never commands, "My dear Lord, please come here so that I can see you." It is not the position of the devotee to command the Supreme Personality of Godhead to come before him or to dance before him. There are many so-called devotees who command the Lord to come before them dancing. The Lord, however, is not subject to anyone's command, but if he is satisfied by one's pure devotional activities, he reveals himself. Therefore, a meaningful word in this verse is adhoksaja, for it indicates that the activities of our material senses will fail to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One cannot subdue all the material activities of his senses, and the Lord, by manifesting his spiritual energy, can reveal himself to the pure devotee. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead reveals himself to the pure devotee, the devotee has no other duty than to offer him respectful obeisances. The Absolute Truth reveals himself to the devotee in his form. He is not formless. The Absolute Truth reveals himself to the devotee in his form. He is not formless. Vasudeva is not formless, for it is stated in this verse that as soon as the Lord reveals himself, the devotee offers his obeisances. Obeisances are offered to a person, not to anything impersonal. One should not accept the Mayavad interpretation that Vasudeva is impersonal. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, prapadyate. One surrenders to a person, not to impersonal non-duality. Wherever there is a question of surrendering or offering obeisances, there must be an object of surrender or obeisances. And thus ends our reading for today. We'll continue from text 24 on Monday. So Jai Vishnupad Paramahamsa Sripad Bhakti Madhava Puri Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Srila Prabhupada, Srila Guru Maharaj, Srila Gurudev, Srila Acharya Dev, Srila Shanta Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Before we finish, actually, were there any comments or questions from the devotees?
Beautiful verse, Prabhu. Good explication.
Yes, as we're speaking about Lord Śiva in this part of Bhagavatam, and tomorrow is Srila Govinda Maharaj's disappearance day. So I was remembering that that Srila Govinda Maharaj was called as Lord Shiva's son sometimes.
Yes.
And so Srila Govinda Maharaj would sometimes help Srila Sridhara Maharaj with medical things. If Srila Sridhara Maharaj was sick, he was like he knew natural medicine, Srila Govinda Maharaj. And so one time Srila Sridhara Maharaj was sick, and Srila Govinda Maharaj, he didn't know how to help him. I believe I heard that he couldn't help him with what he knew. So he was praying to Lord Śiva. He said, if I'm your son, please give some help. And and Srila Sridhara Maharaj was healed. So I was remembering like that. Okay, so Jai, Navadvip Dham Ki Jai,
Jai.
Vishangapuri Dham Ki Jai, Mayapur Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Ju Ki Jai, Angamayi Yamuna Mayi Ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Giri Govardhan Dham Ki Jai, Kund Radhakund Ki Jai, Tulsi Devi, Bhakti Devi, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai, Jai Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Jai Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Scientific Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Princeton Bhaktivedanta Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Institute Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Ki Jai, Avirbhav of Tirabhav Mahamahot, Adivas of Tirabhav Mahamahotsad, Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paravatakacharya Sri Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanandi Hari 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 Bol.
Hari Bol.
Jai Shrimati Uma Devi Dasi Ki Jai.
Jai.
Sripadananda Krishna Prabhu Ki Jai. Hari Bol.
Sripad Krishna Keshav Prabhu Ji ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna.
Dandavat.
Dandavat Pranam.